Welcome to the podcast Compels You, the show in which we review horror movies that belong to our current cursed category. A cursed category consists of two unrelated requirements for a movie. Each delightful two-pack of episodes brings you two movies that fit both requirements. I am your host, Stacy, and I'd like to ask you, if you enjoy the podcast Compels You and can find it in your heart, please leave us a 5-star rating and a flattering review on whatever podcast platform you prefer to patronize. My co-host tonight, and always, is Bill, who is ultimately responsible for what you're hearing right now, as he does all the editing, sound, and music for the show, so please blame him for everything.
Wow,
How are you doing tonight, Bill?
that's quite an introduction.
JK, JK.
It was very tipsy-turvy. I didn't know which way it was going to go.
Neither did I.
Wow. I'm great. I'm feeling great. We had a little bit of a break, so I'm feeling refreshed and ready to rock and roll. How are you doing?
Doing all right. What I really want to know is, are you feeling the Christmas spirit?
I think I am actually.
Is it more than one spirit? How many spirits are in there?
Well, I poured a few spirits earlier. Oh no, sorry. Lots of
Uh,
spirits. Lots of spirits. No, after our Thanksgiving series, I feel like I'm really getting in the swing of things this holiday season. So yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about that.
I was wondering, do you have a standard Christmas movie rec? I feel like I asked you this, but maybe it was about
Ooh.
Thanksgiving
I think
or
it
Halloween.
was
Jeez,
Halloween. It was
it's been
Halloween.
that's how long it's been.
For horror movies, you speaking of, I imagine.
Yeah, of course. What else is there?
For Chris, I don't really have a good Christmas one, although maybe I will after tonight. Do you have any good Christmas ones? Because I think most of the ones I know of are pretty schlocky. I mean, as are a lot of holiday movies.
I've got a great rec.
What do you got?
It is called Day of the Beast, the
Oh,
El Día de la Bestia. It's a Spanish-Italian co-production,
uh-huh.
and really incredible horror comedy that is greatly underappreciated, at least in the United States. Maybe in Costa Rica they know this movie. I can only hope. Anyway, this movie came out in 1995, in case I didn't say that, because I already don't remember. It's a great story, and it's an amazing critique of society and religion above all, but wildly entertaining. I mean, there's a whole segment, like perhaps the middle third of the movie, where all the characters are on psychedelic drugs. So
Ooh,
it's hilarious,
sold.
amazing. I can't imagine it getting made today even. It's so blasphemous, so provocative.
Uh-huh.
And it received death threats while making it. So I mean, it's gonna be good.
Oh, for sure. That's a seal of a good movie.
Speaking of Costa Rica, so I got this, maybe you got the same thing, but I got an email from Spotify that was like, your year in the podcast, or whatever it said.
Oh no, I didn't see this.
And I'll forward it to you. And it
Cool.
gives us some like stats and interesting facts and figures.
Yeah.
And our oldest listeners are in
Uh-huh.
Costa Rica. Isn't that
Do
interesting?
you mean as in age or how long they've been
As
listening?
in age,
Oh,
like
okay.
the above like 55 or something bracket, like the second to oldest bracket that you could be in, I think is
Wow.
where the Costa Ricans, at least some of them are. Enough of, we aren't, you know, a fully populated collection of listeners yet, because
No.
there's a long runway with the podcast, y'all,
Yes, very
apparently.
much so.
And so, just another pitch for you to share this with somebody in your life that you think would enjoy it. I know it takes a special kind of person.
Really does. I'm glad we're hitting our key demographic though of like 55 and
Well,
thereabouts.
now that we know that's our key demographic, maybe we can do some targeting.
Yeah,
Maybe this
I
is a
was just thinking
lesson.
about that. I'm like, well, how could we target them? Like maybe old references that are,
We need to really like do some research, like
okay.
geriatric horror culture.
Could that be maybe a cursed category in the future? Geriatric horror?
All I can think of is Cocoon. Did you ever see that
Yes.
movie?
A
Wait, there's
very,
more
very
than
long
one of
time
them,
ago.
isn't there?
Oh, maybe.
I'm
I
pretty
don't
sure
know.
I've seen both or all of them. Because just being a person interested in horror, how could you look away
Yeah,
from
really.
that movie? Anyway, sorry, Costa Ricans, no offense.
When I think of geriatric horror, I just think of It Follows, that one that follows,
Mm,
well, the one follower, I guess.
the one follower,
Um,
yeah.
yes, that's what I
That was
think of
very
when I think of
effective.
geriatric. Yeah, I agree. There's something
The
about,
like change in age and ethnicities like
hmm
made it all the more like
yeah.
uncanny and scary.
What have you been watching? Anything to note?
Besides that wonderful movie that I have already watched 2.5 times this season, I did watch a 2011 Ty West movie on Shudder, The Innkeepers. And I want to say,
Oh,
have you seen that?
I watched about half of it. Not because I didn't like it, I just got distracted and didn't
Do you
finish
think
it.
it was
But
a little slow? Because it also took me two
yes,
days to finish it.
Ty West is a very slow burn kind of director for sure.
So
So
it's not just me.
no, definitely
I mean,
slow burn.
I definitely saw what was the name of that other movie? The House
House
of
of the Devil.
Yes. Saw
Yes.
that all in one sitting a couple times because I've seen it in the theater a couple times. That's how.
Oh,
But
okay.
this one, I want to say it was an okay, like maybe slightly better than middle of the road haunted
Uh
house
huh.
movie in the haunted hotel
Mm-hmm.
subgenre.
Sure.
Like I would not hesitate to recommend it to someone who already enjoys haunted house movies and already subscribes to Shudder. Like it's not worth going to extra trouble for, but
Uh huh.
it's about two characters and they are working for the haunted hotel in question. In its like last night or last couple of nights, last night I think it was a couple of nights for me because I spread it out over 2 nights. But I think in the movie it's just one night.
Sure. Sure.
Uh, and in its last like couple days of or last day of being open, and serious like haunting shit goes down, and the haunting plot about the like different characters that arrive. I was very much a fan of that. That was very well done. The characters are like kind of cute, and the movie like takes its time to establish their sort of like cute work friendship.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like they had fun together as coworkers. That was nice, but it didn't give us too much by way of like character development in order to really emotionally invest in them. It was sort of just like, ah, they're cute. And then I found the finale maybe a little more than somewhat disappointing.
Oh, that's a
So
bummer.
I think that's what keeps it from being a great movie. I can't say what thing is, but there is one thing that kind of ruins ruins the finale. Um, but yeah, it's a fun watch.
Well, it's official. I need to finish it now. I need to
It's
see
not all
what
about
the
the ending, it's about
yeah
the journey
the journey
or something.
or something. So they say. Yeah, that's funny. I was thinking of House of the Devil as you were talking about that because that is the ultimate slow burn. I mean, that is really takes its time.
I remember it being fun all the way though, but it's been a few years.
It's a very nostalgic movie. It's I guess you call it like a
Like set
period
in the
piece.
80s, I
So
think. Yeah.
was
Or
it 80s or
70s?
70s? Maybe late 70s, I want to say.
Yeah. I remember there was a payphone.
Yeah,
There's
that's all you got
definitely
to say.
like
There was a payphone.
a rotary phone in the house or something. I remember the phones.
Yes. Yeah.
That's
Phones
what
will
dates
tell
it
you
for
everything
me.
you need to know. Oh, for
Exactly.
sure. It's actually funny that that movie reminds me of tonight's movie, The House. The
Hmm.
House reminds me of it a lot.
Phones are also a very big
Yes.
part of the plot. And would you like to introduce the
Yeah.
movie and the
Yeah, why not? Let's do it.
whatever you'd like to say, really. Just
I'll just talk.
take it away.
So, first I'll introduce our categories for this new series, which are films that take place on or around Christmas and whose titles reference a popular Christmas song or carol. So this week we're unwrapping Black Christmas from 1974, which is a chilling classic penned by Roy Moore and directed by Bob Clark. The same Bob Clark who gave us A Christmas Story, Porky's, and Baby Geniuses.
Oh, I'm so sorry that you told me that he was also the director of Porky's. I quit. I'm signing off tonight, guys.
Talk about three bizarre movies to be in a filmography. I mean, that is just and A Christmas Story. Like, I mean, I'm not a huge fan of it, but just kind of like, a classic Christmas
It's
movie.
all right.
It's fine. It's a little long. I watched it recently and it just drags. I just kept looking at like how much longer is this movie going to go on?
It was a very like 80s centric view of like the 1950s.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting
But
it.
I don't think it really holds up.
No, it definitely does not. I will probably not be watching it ever again, hopefully. So Black Christmas stars Olivia Hussey, Margot Kidder, John Saxon, and is it Keir Dalia? Keir. Keir? I'm going to go with Keir Dalia.
Here, that sounds right.
Yeah. Horror fans might know Kidder as Lois Lane from Superman or from horror films such as Amityville Horror from 1979 and 2009's Halloween 2. Meanwhile, Saxon earned his Scream King status as Lieutenant Donald Thompson in A Nightmare on Elm Street. Keir Dalia famously played astronaut David Bowman in Stanley Kubrick's 2001 A Space Odyssey. Did you know that?
Did I?
He plays Peter in this movie, I believe. And it's really weird because when you actually look at like pictures of him in 2001, you're like, oh
Yeah,
God, like that's an iconic role
right.
for this guy to be in.
That did not occur to me. This.
Yeah. So I thought that was kind of cool. So really a pretty star-studded cast, I gotta say, more so than a lot of our films that we've watched so far. Set in
Yeah.
Toronto, this proto-slasher follows a group of sorority sisters being terrorized by creepy phone calls and hunted by a deranged killer during the festive season. It was released to mixed reviews in 1974, but went on to achieve cult status and inspired many horror movies after it, such as Halloween in 1978. Stacy, had you seen Black Christmas prior to this?
Oh my god, no. And I was so delighted to discover that like such an important movie like this existed
Uh-huh.
that I had either never heard of or like heard of but didn't realize how interesting it really would be. Because as it turns out, it has like such an important place in history, like you
Yeah.
said. And it's not every day that I, as like an average horror fan, learn about maybe a little above average, learn about a movie like this that I hadn't ever heard of before. Like, so
Uh-huh.
I did do my three things. Are you
Oh,
excited?
excellent. Oh, I'm so excited.
There's one that I can't even remember if I got or not because y'all, I watched this movie like several weeks ago. But okay,
Okay.
my three things were just with the knowledge that this is a 1970s Christmas horror movie,
Okay.
which is a low bar. Drunk Santa. Wait, there
Ooh.
was a drunk Santa, wasn't there?
Yes. Oh,
Holy
for
shit,
sure.
wasn't there a fraternity with somebody dressed as a Santa?
There very much was, and he had an
Oh
awesome
my
perm.
god.
Yes.
I only just now realized that I got that one right.
Nailed it.
Because I think I wrote these down and never looked back. The
Oh,
second thing
fun.
is, and I apologize, women everywhere who have been sorority members, but all I know is horror movies, and so I had to put Pillow Fight on the list. But then I learned that was really not like a horror trope until the 80s.
Was there a specific movie?
All those teen slasher movies,
Okay.
like sexploitation
Yeah,
horror,
yeah.
you know.
Okay.
The third thing was a power outage. I don't think we had one of those.
No, but I could see why you'd put that. Those are legit.
I almost didn't put power outage because I was like, the power always goes out. That's a gimme. But then it turns out
No,
not so much.
not this time. Try again next time.
I think you had also not seen this one before, but I can't remember.
No, I had not seen it. It's referenced a lot. This is kind of like Rosemary's Baby in that it's referenced so much and that it inspired so many other movies. And I always get a little worried about that because I'm always like, yeah, I get that it inspired things, but is it actually going to be good? Is it actually going to be, hold up? And that's my worry with like classic movies like this. But I also did three things. My first one, like you said, apologies to women everywhere. This was my stereotyping of sororities, I guess we'll say. Number one was a shower scene.
I mean, precedence.
Sure. Number two, a victim sees the killer in the reflection of a Christmas ornament. So I went really
Ooh,
specific with that. I don't
whenever
think
we
it
write
paid
our
off.
movie, we're going to use that.
Yeah, okay, perfect.
I don't even know if I've seen that before, but that's like pretty genius.
Well, oddly enough, I think it was in Home Alone, is what I was thinking of. There's a
Damn
scene where
it.
I mean, we can get away with it still. We have to scrub this episode though, so no one knows the reference.
Well, you're the editor, so I'll leave that up to you.
Oh, that's true. My third thing I thought I'd see is a woman getting chased and running upstairs. I am going to attest that I got half point for this
Half
one
a
because a
point for
woman
that.
does, yeah, she does run upstairs.
And
She's
she
not really
feels
being
like she is
chased.
being pushed upstairs, perhaps.
Yes. So I'm going to give myself like a half point on that.
Yeah,
So yeah,
totally legit.
I think
On
they're all
board
pretty
there.
good though, both of ours. So, nothing too out of the ordinary. Do you have any content warnings for this fine flick?
I'm glad you asked. The plot centers around fairly aggressive, explicit, and demeaning anonymous phone calls, to say the least. So there is that. This is a slasher movie, perhaps the prototypical slasher movie, and there is violence, but it's really so mild compared to modern movie violence. I always feel like I have to mention that. There's hardly any gore, really.
Mm-mm.
You don't really see like the impact of a stabbing, for instance. If a stabbing were to happen, you would not see the impact on the body of the stabbing. Let's just say that there might be a suffocation scene, but you get plenty of warning that that's going to happen. I mean, if that were something that was going to happen, you would get
True.
plenty of warning. It's worth mentioning though that this movie is about a like stalker-like serial murderer who is portrayed as being mentally ill. And because of the damage that movies and TV have done to public perception in this regard, I like to remind everyone that most mentally ill folks are not violent, and furthermore, the mentally ill do not commit more murders than the general population. And honestly, if I were considering like watching this movie with a kid or a sensitive person, I would be more concerned about the misogynistic language used. I was going to say at the time, but you know what? I'm on Threads, so it's the same language today. Uh and the themes that are explored, I think that's way more disturbing if that's not something you're accustomed to. Even still, while that stuff is upsetting, it amazes me how in 1974 we could get a movie like this. Like not only iconic and would go on to define a genre, but that explores these themes in a way that was like ahead of its time compared to say like 10 years later with sexploitation movies in the 80s, as I mentioned, and sleepover teen slashers and that kind of thing were being made like, dime a dozen. And the movies themselves became the vehicle for the misogyny rather than simply holding up a mirror to society the way that Black Christmas did. But I don't know how this happened. I have veered quite a way away from the content warnings and I'm now into content. So let's not do that now. Let's go over to Bill for Dark Fact of the Day. But can I guess?
Oh, sure. I will give you any number of dollars if you figure out what this dark fact is.
I have two guesses.
Okay, you can go. You have as many as you want.
Is it about a real sorority serial killer?
No,
Okay. I withdraw that guess. Is it about the babysitter urban legend that is based on at least one true story?
no, but I almost went down both those avenues.
Fascinating.
Yes, I went with something completely, completely, completely different.
Thanks for letting me play the game. Go
Of
ahead.
course, anytime.
Dark Fact.
So, in honor of finding out that both Stacy and I are vegetarians on a recent episode, I figured it was only fitting to discuss a bizarre Christmas delicacy enjoyed in Greenland.
Oh dear.
In Greenland, they eat a dish called kiviak. Hopefully, I pronounced that right. Probably didn't. And here's the recipe: you take a seal, you stuff it with 400 to 500 whole auks. An ox is a little
What?
bird.
Oh my god.
You sew it up tight, you bury it under rocks for 3 months, and you
Oh my
just let it
god.
ferment. And by Christmas time, you open it up and you eat these birds whole. And it's supposed to be apparently a delicacy, and it tastes like a funky mix of cheese and licorice.
I don't want to be culturally insensitive, Greenland, but that's the worst fucking thing I've ever heard in my entire life. Not that any of y'all fuckers listen to our podcast because we know
Yeah.
we have data. So fuck that. Y'all should know better by now.
Before we get any Greenland listeners, I figure I'd throw that. It's kind of a
Horrible.
weird dark fact. Yeah, isn't that terrible? So it just ferments for 3 months, and then you
How
can
would
turn
that
and eat it.
occur to a human?
Oh, it's horrible. And to make it even worse, it's apparently very expensive too. Like I guess it's expensive to get a seal or something. So not only does it take a long time to make, it's very expensive, and it just sounds absolutely disgusting. So there you go. It's called kiviak if anyone's interested in an early Christmas recipe for this year.
I just made a really ugly face for a very long time, and I know you can't see it, so wanted everyone to know.
Here's to all of our vegetarian listeners. On that note, we are going to take a quick break and we will return after this brief intermission, so stick around. Welcome back. We are now going to get into our spoilerific discussion of Black Christmas, so I'm going to hand it over to Stacy.
Hello, I am Stacy, and this movie begins with a classic. The killer's POV. Shaky, voyeuristic, and dudes climbing the exterior of a sorority house. So
Yeah.
already this movie is doing what Psycho and Peeping Tom did 14 years earlier.
And what Halloween would end up doing 4 years later. This whole opening scene is
everything. Like even
Yeah.
Evil Dead, was just like give the camera to the demon,
Yep.
know. So we are uncomfortably close to the killer, like from the first moment, and I love that. Like we didn't waste any time at all.
Nope.
And kind of like what Bill was saying, we see this shit all the time now, but I like to try to imagine like how scary would this like this Hitchcockian, which is a wonderful word I might have just invented,
Love
isn't
it.
it? Anyway, how scary would this Hitchcockian tactic, if you will, be on the big screen in 1974?
Yeah. I mean, especially when you pair it with like being able to see in windows and you have actors and actresses like acting inside the house. It's just like it's really cool. And also it got me thinking, how did they film this? Like when he's going up the lattice, cameras were freaking huge back then.
I
There was no
know.
GoPros.
It's
There was no
amazing.
like I would love to see some behind the scenes of like how they film, or like later on when like there's a ladder in this, that's climbed. Like I would love to see how they film some of this stuff.
Perhaps there's some obscure footage of that. I would be interested as well,
Oh, that'd be
because I
so
was
fun to
wondering
see.
the same thing. Like,
Yeah.
how are they getting this shit up there? And it still looks like all like
It takes like
handheld.
3 people to carry a camera back then.
Right.
Yeah, it's wild.
Amazing. Anyway, we like this movie a lot. It just,
Yeah.
it's already out there. It's on the table.
Yeah, we're going to be fawning over it all evening here.
Once dude gets inside, he then takes up residence in the attic, where he goes on to become like literally the world's worst squatter.
Yeah.
The worst.
The worst.
Downstairs, it's a lovely scene. The sorority sisters, they're having their Christmas party, and already Barb, who is such a character,
Oh, I love Barb.
is getting drunk. I think she's on the phone with her mom, and she's like, I'm not drunk. I sure smoked a lot of pot, though, or something like that.
There's also another great line I had captions on, and there's like a sentence later where she's not in frame, but you hear her talking in the background. She says, "You're a real gold-plated whore." You know that? I'm like,
That's amazing.
What a weird line that is. And then you're like, you're talking to your mom?
I wonder if she was improvising.
I do have a fun fact. Apparently, Margot Kidder decided that she would like to drink all of the time that her character was drinking. So she was actually drinking during most of those scenes. So it makes sense that there could have been some improv.
Thank you for doing the hard-hitting research, because I am so happy to know that. After Barb's done talking with her mom, because there's only one phone line that we know of.
Oh, don't spoil anything.
The phone rings. This movie's impossible to spoil. It's like
Right.
such a puzzle. The protagonist, I'm calling her the protagonist. Her name is Jess. Jess answers, only to be greeted by the pretty explicit psychosexual rantings of their serial obscene caller that they refer to as the moaner. And then I was like, I'm never referring to it as that again. And I don't think they did either. I'm glad we agreed.
It's a lot.
So yeah, it's obscene. It's very graphic. It goes on and on. I'm just like with my mouth open, because it was not what I expected at all. There was a lot of the C word. There was some animal references, and it's actually quite impressive voice work, wouldn't you say?
Yes.
Because
for
it
sure.
sounds like there are actually several colors like throughout the movie. And actually, they did use different voice talent for the different characters, but it's supposed to be one guy doing all the characters.
Right.
And I'm getting ahead of myself, but
I thought it was weird that the first call we see is just like they've already been getting these calls. I think
yeah.
that's a weird way to introduce it in some sense, you know?
So it's already escalated, probably.
Exactly. In a normal horror movie, this would be the first time they'd be like really shook up, but they're like playing with the guy. Like Barb gets on the phone and starts like fucking with him.
That's what I like about her character. She
Hmm.
just like takes him on and taunts him, but
Yes.
at the same time, arguably, she provoked all the other bad events that are going to happen in this storyline.
Yes.
Damn it, Barb! It's all your fault. You got to find a woman to blame. You know.
Apparently that's her. Oh, I also have another really great Barb line I want to say. I think so. I think what's her name? Whose dad comes later?
Claire.
Claire. Thank you so much. So Claire gets really mad at Barb. She's like, "Don't do that. Don't do this." And then Barb says something about you can't rape a townie.
Ah,
Claire says something like, "Oh, don't you know someone got raped last week or something?" And
if rape were funny, that would be a funny joke. And I'm sure certain people thought it was funny back then.
yeah,
It doesn't hold up.
there is just some bizarre lines in this movie where I'm like, "Wow, okay."
Yeah. I would really like to know like how much was improv, although I know that line wasn't, because that just sounds like a joke that a writer wrote. But
Yeah, for sure.
anyway, it wrote in my like character list, Barb, the hard drinking, no filter queen of the house.
Yes. And she's got this great like black thick choker on, which is a very interesting style choice. There's some great style
Yeah.
in this movie too, just across
There
the
really
board.
is. I didn't comment on any of that because it goes by kind of fast.
Yes, it does.
I'm not very observant about clothes and things.
Or love or
Or
romantic
love.
arcs.
Romantic arcs.
Yeah, that's what I'm here for.
Blind to all that. Thank you. You do fashion too? Are you
Yeah, I branch out here and
fashionista?
there. I dabble.
Impressive. We are so complimentary. I just have to say that.
Exactly. It's perfect.
So Claire, who I wrote in my notes, is the quiet, gentle soul of the
Yeah.
bunch. And we'll find out some more background on her soon. She expresses some concern about the situation, like maybe this guy is dangerous. And everyone else, but mostly Barb, is like, bah,
Yeah.
blah, 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 insult, insult. And then poor
Mhm.
Claire goes up. I think that's when the line that you brought up happens.
Yeah.
Poor Claire goes upstairs, and then Barb refers to her as a professional virgin. And I was like, was that an insult in the I can't keep up with in which decade that's a good thing and
Right.
which decade it's a bad thing. And I don't even really know what decade we're in now. So I don't know. It's a complicated question. Next, Claire, the gentle soul, is packing to go
Aw.
home for Christmas break because her family loves her. Obviously, she doesn't know that she's in the prototypical slasher movie because obviously she has broken cardinal rule number 1. Wait, the cardinal rule is number 1, right? So that was redundant.
Redundant.
By going upstairs alone. Never go, I mean,
Yeah.
upstairs. There's never an escape from upstairs. I mean, at my house there was. Don't tell my parents. But the killer, of course, is waiting. And in one of the most iconic moments, I believe, of this
Mhm.
film, this is the suffocation scene. He suffocates her with like would you say it's like a dry cleaning?
Yeah, like a garment bag, but it's like really thin.
Why didn't you just like poke her finger in her mouth and breathe? You know,
That's a
I
good
always wonder because
good
that
point. She's
plastic is
probably
so
so
flimsy.
surprised. Yeah, she was probably very
I guess.
surprised, but I don't know.
I've wondered that in a lot of movies, though, and I finally got the chance to say it.
Well, congrats.
He then drags her to the attic, where she will spend her last Christmas as a tribute to Psycho, a corpse in a rocking chair by the window. Dang it! Sorry for spoiling Psycho, everybody.
Oh. Hold on. While you were saying that, you just said he dragged her body into the attic. What are the mechanics of that? So he has a ladder, a vertical ladder going straight up. How the hell do you drag anything up that?
Well, he had a camera that took 3 men to carry
That's
outside on
true.
the lattice.
That's a good point. Not to be nitpicky, but that is like a monumental accomplishment to carry like, I don't know, 100 pounds, 80 pounds. I don't know how much she weighs up
I
a
can't
ladder.
imagine he's employed, so maybe he exercises a lot.
Oh, maybe that's true. He's got all the time in the world up there. That's
Yeah.
a good point.
there's probably not a lot of room up there, but you can always do
Yeah.
like the body resistance work.
Sure. Yeah.
Meanwhile, the sorority Christmas party rages on. It's not really a rager.
No.
A bunch of tipsy young ladies and
And Mrs. Mack.
Mrs. Mack.
Oh, I love her.
I like can't describe to you what she does in this scene, but she's entertaining. And I remember they give her some lingerie.
It's like very conservative lingerie. It's like a
It's
like a
like a
sleep
nightie.
frock. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
yeah. And she's like, "Thank you, girl. That's so very nice." And then they're also like saying things about her like under their breath. And then she's
yeah.
like, "What was that?" And then they like say something different. It was a pretty like funny little scene.
I like her. She like overacts in the best possible way. Like her
Favorite
eyes are always
character.
really wide and like she just like expresses everything to the max. I love her.
Yeah. Worth seeing the movie just for her, I think.
And she's got a bit of a drinking problem, we find out very quickly.
Yeah. We'll get to that. So the next day, and let's not forget, this movie is really about Jess. So
Yes.
I consider this the A story.
Hmm.
Well, no, I mean, the calls are the A story. This is the other main story.
There's a lot going on in this movie.
There's a lot going on for a slasher.
Yes.
So Jess has some home-brewed drama, you might say, to get through right now as she calls to arrange a meeting with her terrible boyfriend, Peter.
God.
God, I hope she's breaking up with him. The next thing that happens is Claire's dad arrives to pick her up somewhere outside, like in the courtyard, I guess. And she
Yeah.
doesn't show up to meet him there with all of her stuff. Thanks, Dad, because she's dead.
Yes.
So he goes to look for her at the house after not even knowing where the house is. Would you like send your kid to college and not even know what building they were living in? Is that how things used to happen?
I guess, but I mean, he also like just meets a random frat guy who's like all so like happy to help. It's just like, yeah,
I know. He's like, you know, Claire? What if the frat guy was like, everyone knows Claire, sir?
yeah. What does that mean? Yeah, he's amazing. And then he has a great conversation with Mrs. Mack. This movie just is full of little like 2-person scenes or 3-person scenes that are just
That
could
are
like stand on
delightful.
their own. Yes.
Yes.
I think in a lot of movies where they would just be like filler scenes or just like a waste of time, they're wildly entertaining, especially like what's his name? Mr. Harrison, I think.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, I had forgotten his name. I was like, Claire's dad. Claire's dad.
Yeah, Mr. Harrison and like Mrs. Mack, because he goes to the sorority house and he's like,
Perfect pair.
oh
Like,
my
if they had
God.
their own rom-com, it would be like enemies to friends, you know?
I would love to. I would watch that in a heartbeat. Yeah, for sure.
I think I would too, because I imagine it would be like an old musical. Maybe Carol Burnett would have a part.
Oh yeah. That's the same acting style. I could see
A lot
that.
of potential. Right, yeah. They're all
Yeah.
like from the same school, I feel. So he goes to look for Claire, his daughter, who is dead, at the sorority house, just in case you lost track there.
Yes.
And he's kind of a funny, not funny on purpose at all, but funny duddy. Like, he's a contrast for sure to
Yes.
what he assumes when he looks around is a wild sorority scene, which to us it's not really wild.
No.
Like girls getting tipsy and going to bed.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. So then he meets Mrs. Mrs. Mack, who is hilarious, paired with him. And like, I think when they meet, he like catches her cursing or something at the cat.
Yes.
She's always looking for this cat.
Claude.
That's like her one thing to do. Yeah. Claude, great name for a cat.
Yeah, I agree.
And the thing that is my most favorite about her is that she perpetually is drinking sherry. She's sherry drunk.
And she hides it in like books at the sorority house. And there's one scene where she's brushing her teeth and then takes a swig. I'm like, that's got to be the most disgusting taste in the world. Mint and sherry. Ugh.
I feel like, yeah. And I feel like a lot of movies from this exact time period, there were a lot of like middle class sort of women doing domestic chores and drinking the sherry. Was it because it was the cooking sherry? Like, is
and
that
maybe
how
it was.
started?
It was slightly more acceptable than like scotch or something. The men drink scotch, women drink sherry, I guess. Ugh.
Yeah.
Every single scene though, she's either looking for a bottle or just,
Or
like
hiding
drinking
one
or
hiding
one. I love it.
So they are a great pair of characters.
Yes.
To say, to have together and do scenes. And Claire's dad is so disappointed
Yes.
that this is the situation in which his daughter lives, as he was under the impression that this was a religious college and that she would have more supervision.
Does he
So
say
their
that?
whole their
Oh, I
whole
don't remember that.
interaction says something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Their whole thing is like from start to finish is quite a delight, and it unfortunately finished. It will be very soon.
Aw.
Oh, I know. We're not there yet. So
No.
first, Jess has to go see the horrible Peter,
Ugh.
who is playing something dramatic on the piano. And what do you think he was playing? I don't remember.
I
Like
don't remember
Wagner?
either. It was pretty intense, though, I gotta say.
Men
Like, it
like
was,
him always play Wagner, or
yeah?
maybe Rachmaninoff, but
No, I don't think
Rachmaninoff
it
is
was
always
rock,
better
though.
played by a lady.
Yeah.
Have you noticed
Although he
that?
had big hands, though. It's hard to play Rachmaninoff. He's large intervals, but
I like seeing it when it's a challenge and they
yeah.
do it better with smaller
Ooh,
hands.
touche.
I really love going to see. I know this is not what this podcast is about at all, but I love going to sit like in the front row when there's a piano soloist and just being able to watch their hands.
Oh, yeah, I agree. Something quite wonderful about that.
Anyway, back to Peter, who
Guy.
sucks.
Yes.
But they make him a pianist in this movie, and Jess has an announcement. She's pregnant and planning on having an
Yay.
abortion. I mean, yay.
Yeah, we don't know how we feel. Peter
Yeah,
knows how he
so
feels.
what a timely topic, right? I mean,
Yeah, of
okay,
course.
Peter is aghast as this woman has dared to make a decision about her own body without asking his permission.
Oh my
I think he
God.
says something about that, like you didn't even ask me. The audacity. And Jess is like, I wasn't even gonna tell you. So
Yeah.
what I love about Jess is that she completely stands firm. Like she never
Oh yeah.
waffles on this opinion during the entire movie, which easily they could have made her character like that. Oh, women can't make up their minds. Wah. You know.
There's another discussion or another conversation they have later, which we'll talk about when we get there. But same thing. She is very steadfast in like how she feels about things. I appreciate that, especially for
I
this
like
being an
her
earlier horror movie.
as a character. Yeah.
And then he's like, "Can we discuss it further tonight?" She's like, "Yeah, whatever." Like, like I'm not changing my mind, but sure, we can talk later.
So she stands firm and refuses to let this narcissistic pianist, emphasis on pianist,
Well done.
dictate her future. Emphasis on dictate.
Ooh.
So you go, Jess. Listeners, we solved this fucking problem in 1974. That's all I'm saying. Fuck you, Ronald Reagan and friends.
Yep.
This is all your fault. Anyway, back to the movie. Peter has some of the most incredible lines in this scene, such
Oh,
as,
yeah.
"For God's sake, Jess, don't you ever consider anyone but yourself?" Let me assure you that all of these lines are based on a true story. In fact, billions of true stories since the dawn of agriculture. Then Peter goes back to practicing, but wah! He makes one mistake because his girlfriend ruined everything, so he mistreats the piano like a big baby. Wah! Stupid girlfriend.
Mistreats is one way to say that. He goes to town on that shit.
That happens later.
Oh, I thought that's what you meant. Okay, sorry.
No, he just like bangs his hands on it like bad pianist. You know better.
Right. That's true.
They're expensive to tune, although it's college, who cares? Yeah.
Yeah.
But still, no real musician mistreats the instrument like that. It feels like a sin. I can tell you. So, actors.
So, without spoiling anything, did you have a hunch that Peter could be possibly the killer by this point? Because also in the score, the whole score is basically it's piano strings, like basically like shit being dropped on piano strings. And Peter plays the piano, and Peter's kind of a dick.
Yeah, they were really, really corralling us into this belief.
Yeah.
So I kind of felt the pressure of that, and I was like, I don't know, but
we'll find out.
I'll tell you my thoughts I had along the way.
Okay.
So now is when the cops get involved with Claire's disappearance, except kind of, but not really.
Oh, man.
So Claire's dad, I know this is frustrating. Claire's dad and with the help of Barb and Phil, who, if I haven't mentioned, is another young lady in the sorority house.
Is she the one with like the puffy hair and the glasses, like the kind of octagonal glasses?
I think so.
Okay.
So they try to report Claire missing, but they are, of course, dismissed with casual misogyny. She is probably off with a boy. Thanks, Sergeant Nash. And I'm glad her dad was here.
Yeah.
I'm glad that her dad was there to hear that.
Yes.
So later on in a different scene, it's only when Claire's boyfriend arrives and like storms in and talks to the police that he already knows because he's a man and men know all the police in this
Sure,
town
sure.
that they start to care because we can't upset this nice young white man with such a promising like hockey future, whose property has gone missing. What were you missing again, sir? Oh, a girlfriend. Girlfriend, right.
Who's also wearing a magnificent fur coat that is just,
Oh wow,
oh my
yeah,
God,
that's sign of the
magnificent. Like
times. Yeah.
long, beautiful fur coat. Just
Like a
really,
Russian.
just incredible. Also,
Just like nothing.
while they're at the police station, I don't know if you remember this, Barb pulls a beer out of her pocket and just cracks it open. Like they're just talking to the cop and she just cracks a beer. I'm like,
I wonder if
Barb,
that was the actor's idea because of what you said earlier.
I think she might have just wanted a beer, honestly. Oh, just little things like that that just make me love this movie so much.
Back to the police thing, like, see what sharp critique here?
Oh
This
yeah.
movie is really on point.
Yes.
Next, well, the next scene that really matters. I think Peter is playing a jury, which, if you've never been a college music major, means that you have to play your very, very best for a few faculty members in order to get your final grade for the semester. And if you don't, you'll get a 0 or an incomplete. So it might be a lot of pressure and a lot of people procrastinate. So there's that. Anyway, Peter plays fine. Like his playing in this movie is clearly professional. Like,
Yeah.
no, it's not a question, but I guess he does one thing that's like not good enough. I don't even remember him making an obvious mistake in the
It's
jury.
not obvious, no.
Yeah.
It's a really good piano piece, actually. I put in my notes, like I really actually like the piece he's playing.
It's kind of a trope where like the pressured music student plays a recital and it goes perfectly and the teacher is so disappointed,
right, right.
because of something no one can understand. And let me tell you, the student doesn't understand either. We're just as
Sure.
confused.
Yeah, yeah.
This is the nature of the thing. So after that tense scene, this is when he throws a tantrum and destroys the entire piano with, I guess it was like the base of a music stand, which
Yeah.
must have been really a lot heavier back then than they are now.
They are heavy as hell, actually. Yes, I've had some of those old ones before. They're beastly.
Yeah. And what a giant man baby though. And
Oh, for
also
sure.
not a thing a real musician would do.
No.
Like that was probably a $40,000 piano
Yeah.
at least.
Oh, yeah.
Back at the house outside, we see Peter just hanging around, being kind of casually stalkery, looking
Hmm.
glum. So it's obvious that Peter is the caller slash killer, right? Right?
Sure.
Right?
You
Right.
think? Yeah.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Then poor Mrs. Mac, after leaving a note that she is leaving for the holidays to her great regret, which we don't think she really regrets that much, goes up into the attic in search of her cat, Claude. And I think they had written in to the movie that the cat was also going to die, but they cut that out or they didn't film it that way or
Oh, good.
yeah. At least I remember reading that, so that it could be fiction.
Well, apparently the whole movie was going to be gorier and more violent, but they actually tamped it down on purpose to make it more suspenseful.
Nice. Kind of like almost a little Agatha Christie, like,
Yeah.
like and then there were 3.
Yeah. There's something about like, your brain filling in the gaps rather than it being explicitly on the screen. Like it's
Yeah, I
creepier.
like that stuff.
Yeah.
Poor Mrs. Max stumbles on poor Claire's body in the attic, and before she can even get a scream out, the killer swings a giant hook into
What
her
the
face.
fuck?
Why do they have a giant hook hanging
Oh,
around?
wait a second. This explains it. That's how he got Claire up there on the hook. Right? Maybe?
Oh,
I just
I
figured
think
it
you're
out.
the first person in history to figure that out.
Oh my God. It's a momentous moment on the show.
That is brilliant. Because, yeah, they don't show how he does it.
This reminded me of the kill in Thanksgiving when we couldn't figure out how that person died on the waitress, member in the garbage can outside where she gets hit with the
Oh,
car.
right.
We're like,
Yeah.
physics wise, I don't know how that works. Same thing with this. He like swings this thing over and all of a sudden she's impaled. And I'm like, whoa,
What a swing.
there's a weird hook up there.
You wind that all the way around? Like, what?
And you see him like standing there, like perched, like waiting to throw this thing too. It's just such a weird shot, but yeah, it's pretty good though.
Yeah. There's a lot of weird choices about the deaths, and
Yes.
they get weirder. So,
Uh-huh.
it's kind of a slow, tense Hitchcockian homage. And for those of you keeping score at home, Sorority House is now down a sister and a house mom,
Aw.
which I think counts double.
Yeah, carries a lot
I
of
was
weight.
sad to see her go. She was my fave. And then I think this is when some of the characters discover a dead county girl, young lady in the park.
Yeah,
It's
the
nearby.
lieutenant organizes a search effort for a young girl,
Another missing
Janice.
girl.
Which
Yeah.
this is weird. Is this just to get them away from the house? I assume that was the whole
I do
plot
not
device.
know.
I think it's weird. They eventually find the girl dead, and like Mr. Harrison's part of the search thing, and like Mr. Harrison's whole role is just to react to things. He doesn't really say a whole lot. He just kind of reacts. He's like furrows his brow and looks concerned a lot. But yeah, I think it was just to get all the girls away from the house so that Mrs. Mack could meet her demise, I assume. But
Mm.
I don't
Okay,
know.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then Jess receives another disturbing phone call in which the caller is using these different voices. And she's kind of had enough. So this prompts her to call the police to ask for help. While she's doing that, and Peter like sneaks up on her because he's obviously the killer, right?
Right.
Surely Jess realizes this.
He comes down the stairs, which is unusual. Like,
Very unusual. Yeah.
yeah.
Like, what was he even doing up there?
Hmm.
What were they doing up there? Wait a minute. Is that where babies come from?
Oh. Putting it
Oh, all this
together.
time. All this time. Yeah, anyway. The police keep putting her on hold, and like he's trying to talk to her, and she keeps going back and forth from being like on hold and talking to
Yeah.
him. The police tell her it's probably just one of their boyfriends making the calls. They're a joke. Ha ha, funny jokes.
Real funny.
So it sounds like they are not going to be of much help.
No. This is a super interesting conversation that she has with Peter because he says that he's going to quit the conservatory.
Yes. Yeah.
And her response is something like, I have things I want to do with my life or something.
She had to explain it to him like he's a child that she
Yeah.
has dreams too. Like you know how what you have to tell kids like you don't like it when your sister steals your toy. Well, guess what?
Right.
She also feels the same way about her toys. This is exactly what Jess is doing, and it's so funny to me.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah. Not only is he leaving, he's leaving the conservatory. We're going to get married. And like I think what a great idea that is, since y'all can't agree on anything already.
Oh, yeah, it's match made in heaven.
It's a natural next step.
But she's basically like, I'm not changing my plans
Yeah.
just because you changed your mind, which I'm like, you go, man. She's great.
Yeah. Yeah. He tells Jess he is not going to let her have an abortion. That's the conclusion of that conversation.
Always goes well.
Actually, not quite, because we get a cut of the police station, and the cops, thankfully, are starting to put together that the missing girl, Claire, is from the same address where the obscene phone calls are going.
Ah, interesting.
Isn't that interesting? Wouldn't
Very.
And there was a dead girl somewhere nearby.
Yeah.
Could any of these three things be related? Probably not.
Nah, probably not.
Maybe. Anyway, back to Justin Peter. He's like, what the hell are you trying to do to me? And he continues to be unreasonable while she says factual things like, you can't tell me what to do. She then tells him to leave. And he tells her she's going to be sorry because he's obviously the killer, right?
Of course. I
Right?
I assume so.
I mean, there's no other suspects, literally.
Nope. Gotta
The
be
other
him.
boyfriend seems nice. There's only one other boyfriend that we've met.
Fur coat guy?
He seems all right. Yeah.
Yeah. I like him.
Compared. So anyway, the cops actually come over because they want to look in Claire's room. So they fail to look in the attic, and then they ask Jess all the important questions, like whether Claire was cheating on Chris, whether she had, emotional problems. Did she drink a lot? What was she wearing? No, I added that last one. Jess also hands some phone numbers over to the cops, and it comes out that Mrs. Mack had her own private line. Isn't that interesting?
The plot thickens.
They set up how they're going to trace the call, and y'all, it's going to be so difficult.
Love
You could never imagine how difficult it's going to be. I'm just going to tell you now. However, if you're a fan of really old tech, like really, really old tech, you're going to enjoy some of the scenes in the rest of this movie.
Oh, these are some of my favorite scenes, actually.
This is when I really started to enjoy it. Yeah.
Yes.
I love the phone guy, the nerdy phone guy.
He's like running around and like, checking out all the lines and
plugging in and unplugging in whatever those were.
And how many times do they say you need to stay on the phone for a certain amount of time? Like they say it like 80 times. Like you
But she
gotta
can't
keep
do
them
it.
on the
I don't
line.
even think they know how long it takes,
No, they have no
right?
idea.
It's just
You
like
you
stay
gotta keep
on
them
as
on the
long
line.
as you can. It's all
Oh, it's
mechanical.
amazing.
It's all men running around plugging things in. They can only go so fast.
He just like runs up to a thing, looks at it, and goes, no, 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 and runs over to another thing. You're like, this is how phones worked.
Yeah, this is how actors work around tech.
Maybe that's it.
That's what it is. So after that, I think we get another shot. We start to get a lot of these shots of Peter looking quite disgruntled and
Yes.
stalkery, just hanging around
Uh-huh.
outside. And then we get some of the old tech scenes at the phone company that are fun. And then fucking Barb, went to bed
Fucking
drunk, and
Barb.
now she's having an asthma attack. So Jess, to the rescue, goes to help Barb. Is it Jess or Phil? No, it's Jess.
Jess, yeah.
Yeah, Jess is like, finds the inhaler on the bedside table. And then Barb uses the inhaler like someone who has never used an inhaler before in their time. She's taking tiny sips of air and barely like depressing the thing.
Yeah.
She's like,
As an asthmatic, I was laughing at that. And
me too.
oh my God, you have asthma too? Oh, this is
I did.
great.
Yes. Do you ever get it from laughing too hard?
Oh yes, absolutely. I really relate to any character in a movie who has asthma. Going back to like My Girl, I remember the one kid had asthma, and I'm
Oh,
like, oh, I feel for you, dude. But yeah, that's not how
and
you
he
use
was
an
allergic
inhaler.
to bees
Bees.
at the.
Oh yeah, you
Oh my
remember that.
god!
Yeah,
Like, poor kid. That's
really
all I
sad.
remember.
We gotta do that one on our podcast. That's a horror movie, right?
We could redo the score, and it
Oh,
would
I
be.
love it.
They were the most aggressive hive in the neighborhood.
Dun 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 dun.
He was a newcomer. So yeah, Barb hits that inhaler like 10 times, which is also not how you do it. But then I was like, I don't really know how they dosed it in the 70s, but I'm pretty sure like albuterol and stuff has just been around forever.
Oh,
And
absolutely. It's old.
you hit it twice, and that's it. That's all you're allowed to. Anyway, later that night, in one of my favorite scenes, that as you can imagine, I pretty much laughed through the entire scene because I'm a
Yes.
terrible person.
Oh, it's okay.
And also, I was hoping, please let the children be the murderers. Because we recently watched Children of the Corn, and I'd
Yes.
been thinking about that Kill All the Children movie.
I hadn't even considered that. That would be an amazing twist.
That would be amazing, wouldn't it? Yeah. So that's what I was thinking late at night as I was watching this.
A whole attic full of children. Just tons of them.
That's how we got the camera up because there was like 20 of them.
Well, and earlier, if you remember, Santa was actually feeding the kids booze during that scene too. So they're probably drunken children that are up there in the attic.
I should have put that in the content warnings. Oh my God.
Drunken children, yes, underage drinking, like really underage drinking. Anyway,
Super underage. Thanks, Drunk Santa, but at least I got one thing off my list.
bingo.
So, a group of carolers arrive to lend their sweet voices and holiday cheer to the members of the sorority house, the ones that have survived, that is.
Yes.
Apparently, in one of the most infamous deaths in horror, Barb is then stabbed repeatedly with a glass unicorn. Her screams drowned out by the choir outside. Fabulous juxtaposition and very chilling commentary on how violence against women often goes unnoticed, even in plain sight.
Ooh.
But what does the unicorn symbolize?
I have no idea. It just
I
looked
have
awesome.
no idea either. It must mean something. It's a very specific choice.
Yeah. I was sad to see Barb go. I mean, I knew she had to, but
She was a good character.
she was. She was a good like wingman. I feel like wing woman.
I don't know about that. I mean,
No?
drinking was pretty excessive.
How
And
dare you
she,
besmirch Barb's name?
I mean, and she did get pretty like, insulting, like offensive to people in her state. So like as a wingman, I don't know if that's what you want.
Okay, she's kind of terrible, but I have like a soft spot
As a
for her.
character, I like her a lot. I would like to
Yes.
see her in more scenes, but now we're not gonna
No.
because she died. But now I gotta look up all the other like Margot Kidder movies.
Yeah.
They're probably all boring.
Well, she, I think, famously had a very bad mental episode later in her career that she's kind of like
Oh.
known known for, sadly. So yeah, a lot of mental illness, unfortunately. But I'm
That's
sure she had some
sad.
good movies. Yeah.
So the obscene phone caller, who has so much energy, then strikes again.
You mean the moaner?
Thanks for bringing
Sorry,
that
I had
back
to
when you
throw that
didn't
in.
have to. Just answers. They really never say it ever again.
No, they don't.
And Jess now knows she has to keep the guy on as long as possible to get traced. So she's game. She's trying.
Yep.
One of the lines the caller says this time is, "It was just like having a wart removed," which was almost verbatim something that Peter said to her, talking about abortion, I think. Is that
Oh, I
right?
don't remember that. Yeah, maybe you're right.
Maybe that was the wrong line.
Who mentions that? Does Jess mention that or the lieutenant or something?
Jess, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
It turns out they're listening to all the calls. Anyway, obviously doesn't get traced this time. But now we know 100% Peter is the killer, right?
Sure.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, he must be.
So Jess and Phil then have a conversation about Jess's concerns about Peter's behavior. And Phil is like, "You really ought to tell the police this." Jess did not tell the police this.
Nope.
Questionable decision, Jess, but I'm not blaming you.
No.
Then some guy, okay, I was confused. There's some guy in his car, and I think he had been like the cop that was assigned to like keep an eye on the house, but he was
Yeah.
not in a marked car.
Right.
He suddenly appears, well, he's in his car, but we see that his throat has been slashed. So
Yes.
somebody knows that he's watching the house and needed to get rid of him. Not saying it was Peter, but
maybe. Maybe.
I mean, we never really know. We don't know. We don't know that for sure. Didn't happen in the
No.
house.
No.
But anyway, 100% it's Peter. And just then gets a fairly disturbing call, not from the moaner, but
No.
from an emotionally distraught Peter. Can we just call him the whinger?
The Whinger?
Whinger. Like the
hell's a whin-
whiner.
Oh,
The
okay.
whiner.
Yes.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
okay, we'll call him the whiner.
The
so that we
whiner's
can
better. Yeah, I like that.
both know what we're talking about. Okay.
That helps.
So he's really upset. He's like, "We can't kill the baby."
Yes.
So of course the police are listening, and right after the call, they demand to know what was that all about. I think they're just being nosy.
Oh, yeah. They just want some drama. They want some gossip.
In the course of the conversation, Jess convinces herself it couldn't be Peter because they ask, "Has he ever been with you in the house when you've received these calls?" And she's like, "Yes, at least one time."
Yes.
So he's got an alibi. So she thinks.
Yeah.
Next, the weirdest call of all. That's all I'm going to say. Y'all have to watch it.
Yes.
It is super weird and thankfully super long. During the call, we cut over to the conservatory where Peter, the pianist, has left his mark in the form of the destruction of a piano. And so now there's some police there.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's because they're investigating him. I don't think it's because the university opened a case about it.
No. It's a low priority.
The case of the crushed whatever it would have been.
Steinway?
Yamaha. I don't know. Maybe.
Probably not a
Was it a
Steinway.
recital hall? It looked really small, the room.
It did look small. Yeah. That was probably more of a
Not that
practice.
they can't move pianos around, but so yeah. They're investigating, they notice the piano's all busted up. So clearly this guy is out of his gourd.
Yep.
Back to the weird phone call, which is still going on. I imagine it's like many pages of script.
Yes.
All this weird shit and different characters, Agnes and Billy, and you
Yes.
killed the baby. Oh, so now there's a mention of someone killing a baby. That's right. It's got to be Peter, right?
Oh, another connection.
Because Peter doesn't want her to get an abortion. And that is also the language that he used about killing babies. And the police heard
True.
that on the phone. So finally, the most iconic scene, I think, in the movie, the phone guy.
Yes.
Remember the phone guy?
I was hoping you were going to say
nerdy phone guy. He gets a trace. He gets a trace.
Finally.
Hey, guess what? Guess what, Bill?
What?
The calls are coming from inside the house.
But wait, there's only one phone line, isn't there?
Well, remember, in that one scene, they really quickly divulged that Mrs. Mack had her own private line.
Oh, that explains it.
If you knew how to do wiring back in the day, you could totally like do a line splitter and then put a phone in another room. You just buy things at Radio Shack and just I'm trying to appeal to our geriatric audience here.
Oh, that's right.
Radio Shack. They probably didn't have that. Did they
Radio
have that in Costa Rica? I really want to know.
Oh man, that's a tough question. I
I
don't know.
guarantee you go to a Radio Shack, you would find a phone line splitter.
Yes.
And whatever else you need. Anyway, so that he could have so the moaner could have his phone in the attic.
Yes.
The important thing here is that Peter's alibi of being at the house is now meaningless
Yes.
because he could have gone upstairs real quick and used Miss Mac's private line to make a call.
Yep.
So at that moment, Phil goes upstairs to check on Barb. I think Barb had like gone to bed drunk and then she wasn't feeling well with the inhaler and stuff. So she then discovers Barb has been stabbed to death by a glass unicorn, which is definitely not funny. And now Phil is confronted by the killer herself. Now I've put it together.
Yes.
The guy with the throat slashed. I remember now. Jennings, are you there?
You remember his name is Jennings?
It just came back to me.
Wow, that's amazing.
I think, or maybe it was a different cop show.
No, don't second guess. His name is Jennings now.
Like Peter Jennings.
Oh, Peter Jennings, yeah.
This script has a Peter and a Jennings. What are they trying to tell us?
I think you're reading too much into it.
Yes. There's medication for that. I'm gonna look into it.
Immediately after this.
So Sergeant Nash calls Jess to tell her.
Oh, this is a great scene.
The calls are coming from inside the house and she needs to get out of there quick, but she wants to go upstairs to get Phil and Barb. No, she's not going to leave without friends. Her friends, Phil and Barb. No, Jess. No, they're not available right now or ever again.
I thought this was kind of interesting because the way he approached it, because he calls and he's like, listen, I just need you to walk out the front door.
Because they were like, don't spook her. She's a lady.
I get why he's doing it, but like Nash is actually kind of like a decent dude in this scene. He's kind of a jackass the rest of the movie, but he tries to handle it very well. Before he then, of course, unveils that, the call is coming from inside the house.
It's kind of like when that happens, I think they start taking everything serious.
Yeah. Kind of shifts. The whole movie shifts a little bit.
They didn't have any body count except for the girl in the park, if you think about it. Like, we know.
Right.
Nobody else knew.
No, because they didn't sweep the attic.
Getting dragged up into the attic on the hook.
By the hook.
Yeah, except for Barb. Now he's getting lazy. Barb's just in her room, and now he gets Phil. How does Phil die?
I don't remember. It wasn't very memorable, I don't think. I think it's just kind of like
I don't remember at all.
Yeah, but maybe the unicorn again. Who knows?
Yeah. So Jess goes upstairs, goes to check on Barb, discovers the two bodies, freaks out, of course, then has a narrow miss with the killer, whose eye is visible.
Such a good scene.
Through a crack in the door. It is a very good scene. So she runs away, and I'm like, yeah, run outside. Go outside, run away. It's a college. There's a lot of places you can run.
Yeah.
The basement. The basement, listeners. She goes to the basement and locks herself in.
I think she tries the front door, if I'm not mistaken, and it's locked. I may be making that up, but I don't know how it would be locked from the inside. But anyway, I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt and say that she couldn't get out the front door.
She tried, yeah.
Yeah.
She's got a fire poker with her. That's important.
Yeah.
So the killer, Peter, yes, Peter.
Or the group of children.
That's who I mean. Peter appears at a window outside the basement to help. She won't let him in. They go back and forth about this. So what does he do? He does the only reasonable thing a man could do in the situation. Kick the window in. It's always going to be interpreted as helpful and friendly for sure.
Yeah. So not aggressive at all.
I don't feel bad for him that he gets murdered with a fire poker. So yes, Jess assumes that he is the killer and bludgeons him to death.
Oof.
That is a bludgeoning, right? Am I using that word correctly?
Yeah. Well, bludgeoning is usually like a blunt object, right? Like It's
Fire
not a
poker,
stabbing. I think you can stab with a
didn't
fire
stab
poker.
with the poker though. She just beat him with
Oh,
it. It
she
was
beats him, so it's a beating.
yeah, it's brutal. So
Yeah.
is a beating not a bludgeoning?
Well, I think a bludgeoning is if you're like poking someone with a blunt object, whereas like hitting someone over the head, or I think that's a
Oh,
beating. I don't know. I'll have to look up the definitions later.
so this was not quite an educational moment, but moving on. I just want to point out that she gave him all kinds of warnings to stay away from her, to not
Yes.
come in, first of all, and then to stay away from her. And she was clearly armed with a fire poker.
Yeah.
So no means no in all kinds of situations. Yeah. I mean, that's the message here. Yes.
She pretty much handles everything in this movie very well, I will say, for the most part.
She
And
did her
she's like,
best, I think.
yeah, for sure.
So the police come and they assumed Peter was the killer, which I think they had pretty much already decided. Eventually they calm things down. They give Jess a sedative, which questionable choice. So she's then sent up to bed alone, sedated, in the house where everyone died, and she's the only one left.
Yeah,
But we do have a sense of safety because they got the guy, right?
of course.
We think the movie's ending, and it does, but not till after a great slow pan up to the attic trapdoor where we see it move a little bit, yeah, and then
Yes.
or we just hear and then we hear footsteps and
Ah,
like just quiet muttering, ranting and raving,
yeah, yeah.
very quiet.
Uh-huh.
So once again, they didn't search the attic, and long story short, we never know who the killer was.
No. And you hear a phone continuously ringing over the
And the
credits,
phone
which is
rings after
great.
that. Who does he think is going to answer now? Does he
Right.
want to wake her up? I guess he doesn't know that
Maybe.
she's been sedated. It's
Uh,
like, Jess answered the phone.
so good.
Oh, so what do you think about the ending? Did they land the plane, as you are
Oh,
fond of saying?
I loved the ending. I gotta say. I mean, Jess ends up being a badass like she's been pretty much the whole movie. I love ending on a little ambiguity, that whole little, the attic door creaking up or closed or whatever was awesome. And also a couple of Halloween nods. So when she goes up and sees the two bodies on the bed, that's a very Halloween reveal where Laurie Strode goes upstairs and finds her friends dead on the bed.
So it's a Black Christmas nod because Black Christmas.
Oh, sorry. Yes, it was a Halloween's Black Christmas nod. There you go.
Just wanna,
Yes.
keep it really clear.
Thank you. And the other thing, you had mentioned the sedative, and I had forgotten about that. In Halloween 2, the exact same thing happens. Laurie Strode goes to the hospital and she's like freaking out, and they end up giving her a sedative just after this crazy night of killings. Same thing. It must be a 70s thing. Like, oh, this woman is clearly,
Right.
out of her mind. We must give her a
Hysterical.
hysterical. That's the word.
Hysterical.
Yes, we have a hysterical woman here. We need
Treatment
to
for
sedate her.
hysteria. That's exactly what it was.
Oh my God. But no, I thought it was a fantastic ending. How about you?
Oh my God. 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10.
Amazing. Like, I love that the perpetrator is actually left unknown because
Yes.
now he sort of stands in at, like, he can't help it. He's like every man now. He's like
Yeah.
every weird, fucked up, terrible man everywhere. It's kind of like the ending where, like a certain movie about a cult in an apartment building that we like, where
Yep.
he runs outside and then it turns out all the other apartment buildings are also the thing.
Yes.
So I love a kind of ending that just like leaves that possibility.
I agree.
Not that it's the identical situation, but like
I know
it's
what you
just,
mean though. Yeah.
yeah. And I also love how the regular boyfriend was so fucking terrible that he was indistinguishable in his behavior from the
Right.
actual killer. Like,
Oh.
you're like, okay, I know that the movie is really pushing that he's the killer, but like everything exactly lines up. I can't imagine any other ending. Like, that's what
Right.
I was thinking, right?
Like he has like zero redeeming qualities. So it's just
I
like,
was like, there's got to be some like finale scene where it's like a long chase and it's exciting, but we already know he's the killer. That's how I
right.
was thinking it was going to end because
Yes.
sometimes they do that.
Or like he like steps in to try to save her. Like he ends up kind of being a good guy, but ends up getting killed trying to save Jess or something like that, but no, he's just a
Yeah.
douchebag
He's
all the way to
just
the end.
he's just a horrible person who just happens to be in the line of bludgeon.
Yes.
In the line of fire poker.
Right.
Yes. And I was pleased that his arc ended there. And I think Jess's arc was that maybe she doesn't need a boyfriend right now. Maybe she can go chase her dreams if she gets away from the house, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I was just looking up. Is there a sequel to this? I know it's been remade twice, but is there a
There's a remake and a sequel to the remake, I think, that they
huh?
they have all kinds of backstories for the killer and his family.
I'm super surprised they didn't do like a direct sequel to this.
If they did, I did not turn it up.
Yeah, no, I'm looking right now. I'm not seeing anything. I see a 2006 remake and then a
Mhm.
2000 or 2019.
Yeah, it goes into, I think, like, the history of like, that used to be their family's house. That's how it
Oh,
started.
God.
Really fucked up family.
Yeah.
You wanna talk about how we rate this movie on our
Yeah.
very scientific scale of 5 screams?
Sure. Do I get to go first?
Absolutely.
I mean, I loved this movie. This definitely lived up to the hype. Like I was saying earlier, I get a little worried about these classic movies maybe not being, maybe not holding up well or something like that, but this one, I gotta say, from start to finish, not a lot of like downtime. And even when there was just like random conversations, they were wildly entertaining. The cinematography really surprised me. It was really good. There was a lot of shots of like zooming in on a window, like especially the attic window where, her body's sitting in the chair. And it's just a really cozy movie. I'm a big fan of like 70s cozy movies, like big wooden houses and
Yeah.
like big gaudy wallpaper and like, oh, it's just super cozy.
The 60s too sometimes.
60s too, yeah, for sure. Really just fascinating characters. Most of them were Canadian. You get a couple of them slipping up their Canadian accents here and there, which I thought was hilarious. And what's her face? Jess has a very strange accent. Did you notice that?
Yeah, was she Canadian?
No, so she's her one of her parents was Argentinian and the other was English Scottish. So she has
Oh,
this like
interesting.
very interesting accent. Anyway,
It never occurred to me that she might not have an exactly American accent. But yeah, I noticed it was interesting and I was like,
very interesting.
lots of these people are Canadian, so
Hmm.
maybe it's just that and I don't know all the Canadian variants.
Right. But this movie reminded me a lot of not surprisingly When a Stranger Calls, which I think this movie's a lot better than that movie. When a Stranger Calls is a very odd movie in that like the first act is fantastic and then it gets super bizarre. But I think this movie does the calls coming from inside the house even better than that movie, and that's what that movie's known for. So that's high accolades for this movie. I'm gonna give it 4 out of 5 screams. I really liked this movie, I gotta say.
Nice.
How about you?
I think I've said all the things already that it's such a bold movie ahead of its time. I
Yeah.
also really liked the camera work. I really liked the score and the sounds they used with the
Hmm.
piano that
Yeah.
were very spooky. I loved the feminist critique. And now I don't know much about Bob Clark as a human being, but dang, like, so he and the writer, it really
Yeah.
got this movie right from a feminist perspective, as far as anyone could have done in 1974, I think. And then he went and made Porky's. God damn it, I quit.
Oh man.
I don't know what else to say about Bob Clark, but like, maybe this was his one gem, really. And like the world should thank him for that. I hope he was not a sex criminal. I mean, odds are he probably was.
Wow, bold
Sorry,
claims.
that's just how it seems these days. Like if you worked in in Hollywood at all, especially
Right.
then,
Sure.
before anyone cared, before it was, it used to be just like acceptable part of the industry.
Yeah.
You know, they even got on Hitchcock for that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's all I got to say about that. I'll rate it. I think I rated 4.5 out of
Wow.
5
Awesome.
for the foregoing, and also like great character work with
Yes.
Mrs. Mack and Claire's father,
Oh,
and even some of the police officers, although they were kind of stereotypes, like
sure.
they were fun characters. And Peter like really made me hate him, so that must mean he did a good job.
Yes.
It's hard for me to say that because I just hate him. I have trouble separating, the reality from the villain.
Right.
Sorry, Peter. I'm definitely not going to stalk you, whoever you are. You're probably very old now.
He might be dead.
I should probably stop talking now. 4.5. So what? It is a 4.25 on our very scientific scale of 5 screams.
Do you want to know where that places it in our list?
Yeah.
So, wow, we actually have quite a four-way tie for second place. So, in second place, we have The Wicker Man, The First Omen, Ready or Not, The Dark and the Wicked, and Black Christmas, 1974.
We do such good movies.
We do. I mean, we're gonna have to get to some stinkers soon, but
We didn't set out to just do one banger after another, but I mean,
No.
it seems like lately that's what's been happening.
I agree.
We're gonna make a commitment to get shittier in 2025.
That's our goal. That's our New Year's resolution. It's all shit from here on out.
Unless the Costa Ricans don't like that idea, in which case we will reconsider because they are a considerable lobby.
We will take most of your recommendations, Costa Rica, because yes, you are a large part of our listenership
Would
right now.
love some Costa Rican recommendations.
Oh, I would love it.
But I feel like they would rather just be like anthropologists and study what it is that we're doing
Ooh,
because it's so weird.
who's listening to who? I like it.
Anyway, that's all I got. You want to talk about our next selection?
Oh, sure. So that concludes the first episode of our Christmas Carnage series. Next episode, we're jumping ahead 10 years to 1984 to cover another, hopefully horrifying holiday film, Silent Night, Deadly Night. In the meantime, please like and subscribe to our show on your preferred podcast platform and share it with a friend or many friends. And until next time, stay spooky.
See ya!